everybody. So today I'm going to be doing something new and different. I've been spending a lot of time with good friends of mine who are big tabletop gamers, and they've shown a little interest in me potentially doing narration for some of the fun games that we play. So hopefully, if everything goes well, for any of you guys RPG gamers out there, you know that getting a group together to play is like herding cats or so I've been told. But hopefully everything going well. We'll have a campaign set up to play this game called Exalted. So I'll try to put some links in for that game in the description, and a link to my friend's channel as well. He's got some really fun stuff. He does live streams of the games that he runs, and he's got some awesome people on there who make some really fun characters. But anyways, I'll actually be reading the intro from the Lunar's manuscript. It's called Lunar's Fangs at the Gate, from the game Exalted. Lunar's is one of the factions, for lack of a better term, who are actually shapeshifters. And it'll be really interesting. I'm hoping to make a fun character who is a hippo. He's a war veteran, now bodyguard, and basically think of a really big ginger bear bearded type guy. I like playing tanks. They're fun and safe. Anyway, so tonight I'll be reading an intro. Hopefully it'll be relaxing and fun and an interesting way, or an interesting new story for you guys. Alright, so the smell of roasting rabbit made Sisei's chops water. She'd caught 2 of them earlier while Tagama started the fire, and now she lay curled up as a fennec, tip of her tail touching the tip of her nose, eking as much warmth out of the flames as she could. Sisei had teased Tagama about cooking meat they could perfectly well eat raw, ribbed him about clinging to his aristocratic ways, but she'd only half meant it. Now she had to admit the hot mead would be welcome in this dreadful cold. Perhaps if you were a different kind of fox, Tagama suggested as she edged closer to the fire, careful not to get singed. He was from the scavenger land, cooler than the southern climes Sisei called home, but still warmer than this frigid corner of the north. He'd wrapped his lean form in a fine wool coat. Sisei teased him about that too. Fennecs live in the desert, don't they? Up here they're all tail and thick fur, and much smaller ears. But these ears will tell us if we're being pursued, she'd say, flicking one to emphasize her point. Sisei sat up and stretched, letting her human form come slowly. She hated losing the warmth her fur had soaked in. Since you wouldn't let us stop to fight those dragon-blooded bastards, our Shahan Yas would never forgive us if that wild hunted killed us before they found the fledgling, or worse, led them to her door. Tagama passed her a rabbit before thoughtfully stripping a chunk of his own, hissing at the hot grease. Psh, I've seen you fight. 2 of them would be dead before they saw you draw. Then you'd realize I'd already killed the other 3. Think of the tale. While searching for a new Lunar, Sasei Shadow Dancer and Azu Takama Asakorn defeated 5 dragons simply to pass the time. She tore into the rabbit like it was one of the dragon's throats, and Takama laughed. They both knew she was boasting. Such a battle would never be so easily won. Perhaps we'll see them again and you can try. But reaching Tula, Sasei nodded. I know. It's more important than tweaking the realm's nose. Spirits and spies had brought the name of the new Lunar in the north to their Shahayan's ears. In turn, those esteemed elders had entrusted Sasei and Takama with seeking her out and recruiting her to the Silver Pact. She'll need training and protection when the wild hunt does take notice. Takama was no fool. The realm would notice eventually. Its resources might have spread thin these last few years, but thin wasn't non-existent. If the order didn't come from the Blessed Isle, a bored Dynas stationed in Stone Backwater Strataby might get it in her head to seek glory and call a hunt. Or the one Sasei and Tagamid slunk around a day's journey south might get wind of the new Lunar in Kulinth and investigate. I hope they do, but not until Tula was ready. Sasei and Tagama had a plan, and they needed her to help carry it out. Do you think we can convince her to join? Tagama's smile was cold as the northern night around them. If we can, the 3 of us will do more than tweak their noses. We'll cut out their hearts. Tula, Sasei repeated, even though it was unlikely the realm's soldiers had ever bothered to learn the banded woman's name. He learned it now, and feared it for the rest of his life. Which wouldn't be long, of course. She wasn't so foolish as to leave him alive. Wouldn't let him run back to Kulinth like with Tula's name on his lips. Capturing him had been easy, and Tagama had left Sasei to her questioning. They were well outside the city, but her full moon companion refused to risk a surprise patrol ruining their mission so close to its end. Over the last few hours, her captive had proven quite knowledgeable about the bandit activity near Kulinth, enough to fill in the last piece of information they needed to find Luna's new chosen. Still, she wasn't done. Sasei stepped closer, looming over the soldier as her skin rippled and shifted. Her bulk filled the makeshift shelter, her shoulders touching the walls and her head brushing the ceiling as her war form took shape. Sharp teeth filled her mouth, and Sasei leaned in, snapping at the air inches from her prisoner's face. "Tula," she growled. "Say it." Tula, please, I'll..." Whatever promises he made, Sasei paid them no heed. Soon enough, he'd be too dead to keep them. Snow crunched beneath their feet as Tagama and Sasei trudged through the forest. They were a half-day's walk outside of Kulinth, nearing the abandoned barn where the soldiers said a group of bandits used to hide. On their way through the city, Tagama had noticed the garrison soldiers were heavy, fur-lined... On their way through the city, Tagama had noticed the garrison soldiers wore heavy, fur-lined cloaks and boots, plenty of protection against the cold. The peasant's attire was far less opulent, which he'd expected, but was patched and threadbare to a degree he hadn't. Once, such details wouldn't even have registered with him, but that was a lifetime ago, when he thought his royal birth meant people ought to respect him, not that he should strive to earn the respect his position conferred. He'd learned better since then, and now recognized the gaunt looks that said people were going hungry, the darting glances and scurrying pace that meant they were afraid of the very soldiers meant to protect them. No wonder they turned to banditry. Now and then a dove called out in the branches above them, though Tagama had yet to spot it. His attention had been focused on the ground for the last mile or so. Sure, they were being followed. Had the wild hunt found them after all? He'd seen no signs of any dragon-blooded in the area aside from the garrison's commander. Would she have sent troops after her missing soldier? Sasay hadn't left evidence of her interrogation, but that didn't rule out a search. The attack came from above, heralded by the flutter of wings. Tagama had time to look up and register the woman barreling down at him, her emerald wings shifting into outstretched arms, a war cry echoing through the trees. Tagama's day clave flowed into his hands as she struck, and they tumbled away into the snow. He regained his feet quickly, and she followed. He turned aside to thrust after thrust of her spear. "Where's the rest of the hunt?" she screamed. "They said you'd come after me sooner or later. Where are the others?" Her fur grew with each step of her advance, as did Tagama's understanding. "She thinks we're the wild hunt." He turned aside another blow. What she lacked in skill, passion made up for. "Stop! We're not here to fight you." Snarls rent the air off to Tagama's left, belying his claim. Where he'd last seen Sasay in human form, two gray wolves now circled one another wearily. Blood spotted the snow and stained the larger wolf's teeth. "Look," Tagama pointed behind his opponent, at the smaller wolf, Sasay, and her wounded shoulder, at the swirl of moon silver in her fur. "We're like you, like both of you." The woman paused and glanced back at the wolves. Sasay had heard Tagama's plea. She stopped circling and sat on her haunches. She wasn't the type to expose her belly or throat, not so quickly, but the other wolves seemed to accept the truce. The other Lunar shifted into an androgynous hybrid form, a chambered shell growing from their back, its lacquered surface a swirl of deep yellow and white. They hunkered within and watched as Sasay shifted too, human once more. Tagama sheathed his dayclave slowly, so Tula couldn't mistake his movements for a renewed attack. "Let's start again. You must be Tula. I'm Tagama Asurkon." He left off the honorific Azu. They were all equals here. Tula glanced towards the Nautilus Lunar, but they only shrugged. "How do you know my name?" "My companion Sasay and I heard rumors and followed them here. A farmer forced to banditry by the satrap's ever-increasing taxes. Strange incident when the soldiers came for the lot here." Tula ducked her head, and Tagama continued softly. "Luna chose you, and we came to help. She has help. Found me herself." The Nautilus Lunar appeared between Tagama and Sasay. Sasay looked about, ready for another shot at them, despite her bleeding shoulder. The sharp-toothed smile she flashed held a challenge in it, but the Nautilus Lunar merely rolled their eyes, and Sasay dropped the threat. It gave Tagama a measure of comfort. Sasay simply wanted the chance to best a worthy competitor, not eliminate an enemy. But Tula couldn't know the nuance of Sasay's many smiles. She stepped between them and said, "This is my friend, Silent Pearl." She seemed to be testing out the word, watching the others react to it. For their part, Silent Pearl only nodded. Sasay grunted. Tagama startled. "Silent Pearl? But they've been gone for centuries." "Not gone, sleeping." They regarded Tagama curiously. "You know my name?" "I know stories." The Lunar who tattooed Tagama had told tales of others while she worked. Mahasuchi and Lilith, Shah Oka and Vanamithri Mirror Soul, and the Silent Pearl, herbalist and healer and witch of the marshes, whose last tale was spun before the shogunate fell. I found them, said Tula, in a ruin few days east of here. I didn't know what, something to help my people, a weapon maybe. And you did. Silent Pearl seemed quite pleasant with herself. This time, when they looked at Sase, they received a genuine smile. I thought more would have changed, but it appears the usurpers have only changed some names. We have a satrap to drive out. Then in that, said Sase, we might find common cause. Tula added another pinch of salt to the stew. It'd been a while since she'd fed a group, and she'd missed it. Meals with Silent Pearl were pleasant enough, if a little perfunctory. The older Lunar sometimes still seemed to be shaking off their long torpor, or maybe they'd simply never seen much of light conversation. Watching how easily Sase and Tagama bantered and bickered warmed Tula's heart in a way she hadn't realized she needed. Her gang used to do this, plotting out their next strike while she cooked, clamoring to be the one who got the sample spoon she'd offered during the process. Sase came sniffing around the most often, though she didn't offer any opinions other than, it's good. Earlier, the four had joined a flock of snow buntings and flown over the city so the newcomers could view it from above. Now, Silent Pearl had drawn a group map of Coolanth in the dirt. They marked out where the barracks were, the storehouses, the buildings where the tax collectors stored their records. Tula peered over their shoulder, making adjustments and pointing out vulnerable spots and escape routes for refugees. Much as she wanted the satrap and the realm's forces gone, she wanted there to be a city left for her people to return to. Tagama impressed Tula with his insight. He'd helped overthrow a tyrant in his time, and knew what they should expect. Yet he deferred to Silent Pearl's wisdom. Sase asked about the power structure, who hated whom, what rivals she could exploit. Silent Pearl grinned from within their nautilus shell and mentioned going to talk to an old friend. And you, Tula, they asked as she passed around bowls of steaming stew and a hunk of crusty bread. What will you do? She thought of the people who'd shelter her after the night the garrison came for her and her gang, the farmers who'd starved themselves to pay the realm's hefty taxes, the people who worked the land and finished the rivers and kept so little of their harvest, the very people who'd provided her the ingredients in the stew they were all scarfing down, who risked the satrap's wrath by leaving bundles of food at her door. They ought to be a part of this too. I am going to start a rebellion. So, that's the introduction for the Lunar manuscript of Exalted. It's actually quite fun. The setting is very interesting, and I'm very excited to see what my character can do and where this story is going to go. So far, all the games that I have joined in have been so fun. They've all been quite adventures. So, let me know if you like this kind of storytelling. It's a break from my usual fairy tales. I do have access to a lot of different forms of literature, if I could say, books, let's say. I have fairy tales and poetry and gaming books, so I would love to do more like this and see what you guys think. Also, definitely check out Exalted. It's a really fun game if you like fantasy with an Asian background. If you want to branch out from games like Pathfinder or D&D, I have heard this game compared to Pathfinder. So I'm very excited. Alright, guys. Again, take care of yourselves. Stay home and be safe. And I will see you guys again soon. Or I guess hear from you guys again soon. Alright. Good night.